all across the United States, and for that matter, around the rest of the world, require us to adjust our thinking and to adjust our activities. In the state of California, many people are very familiar with these adjustments. A number of days ago, there were 6 Bay Area counties that led with stay-at-home orders. Now, as I speak, some 21.3 million Californians reside in a community, in a city and or county that have similar orders. A state as large as ours, a nation state, is many parts, but at the end of the day, we're one body. There's a mutuality and there's a recognition of our interdependence that requires of this moment that we direct a statewide order for people to stay at home. That directive goes into force and effect this evening, and we are confident that the people of the state of California will abide by it. They'll do the right thing. They'll meet this moment. They'll step up, as they have over the course of the last number of weeks, to protect themselves, to protect their families, and to protect the broader community in this great state in the world that we reside in. I have confidence in that. I have confidence because I've seen it every single day. We've seen it in cities large and small. People still doing essential work. People still providing essential services. People still going out to the grocery store to get food, walking their dogs, practicing social distancing, nonetheless, when they're out in the streets. People still getting their medicine. People still going about doing the kind of essential work that is required to meet this moment. The order provides for all of that, just as these other orders that have been put into place in cities large and small across the state have afforded. People will ask, well, how will you enforce? As I say, there's a social contract here. People, I think, recognize the need to do more and to meet this moment. People will self-regulate their behavior. They'll begin to adjust and adapt as they have been quite significantly. We will have social pressure that will encourage people to do the right thing. Just a nod and look saying, hey, maybe you should reconsider just being out there on the beach, being 22 strong at a park. It's time for all of us to recognize as individuals and as a community, we need to do more to meet this moment. Enforcement comes in many shapes. You have a regulatory framework, you have licensing frameworks. I don't believe that the people of California need to be told through law enforcement that it's appropriate just to home isolate, protect themselves, go about the essential patterns of life, but do so by socially distancing themselves from others, and do so using your common sense. Now, why is it important that I advance this new order? It's for the following reasons. We've been doing pandemic planning in the state of California for now over a decade. Now we're moving into application, implementation, and that includes the latest technology and data collection, the ability to work with artificial intelligence to mash that data up, to really look at trend lines before they become headlines. And what we're seeing, not only on the ground, but we're seeing through the data, is this spread continues at a pace that we had anticipated in a number of our models. Let me be precise. It's a number that we have been using for the purposes of guiding our resource delivery and guiding our decision making. We estimate in the United States, we've heard this number across the rest of the world, that people, 30% of the population, as high as 70% of the population, may contract the virus. In California, we've been working with those numbers. As a nation state, 40 million strong, we've been organized around an attack rate, as we refer to it, of about 56%, that the virus will impact about 56% of us. You do the math in the state of California, that's a particularly large number. That number in and of itself shouldn't be overly alarming. The vast majority of us, the overwhelming majority of us, won't have symptoms, will be perfectly fine. But there is a subset that we're concerned about that will impact, not be impacted by the virus, but also potentially can impact others, including impacting our capacity to deliver the high quality services, not only to meet the moment as it relates to COVID-19, but to provide for all the acute care that millions and millions of Californians depend on every single day. So we're looking at a hospitalization rate by using those numbers. And forgive me, I know sometimes these numbers get confusing, but a 56% attack rate, if you assume that R naught, which is the number of individuals that you may come in contact with that can contract the virus, if you use that formula, we believe with a 20% hospitalization rate, a little bit on the higher end, though some would argue it could be much higher, some believe it might be much lower, but 20% hospitalization rate, it's about 19,543 people that would need to be hospitalized under that scenario, above the existing capacity of our system. So that's the planning methodology we've been using. I'm being very straight with you. And these are numbers I can assure you governors, mayors, administration across the country are working with. But I think it's time to tell you what I tell my family, what I tell my wife, just as I did 2 nights ago when I told my daughter that I don't believe that this school year she'll get back into that classroom. And those are difficult conversations, and I know they're conversations you're having in real time, and you're having with one another as I speak. And I deeply appreciate the anxiety of these difficult conversations, but we must have them. But as we work through that planning process, 19,543 beds in our system, I'm able to look at our existing capacity. Let me be specific of what our existing capacity looks like. We have 416 hospitals in the state of California. We have capacity to provide care beyond our hospital system, but within the hospital system, we have a capacity to surge the number of beds beyond the 78,000 currently staffed beds by an additional 10,207. By the way, that number changes on a daily basis, but that's today's number. So looking at the 19,500 plus individuals in our planning, looking at that surge capacity, about 10,000, we're looking at a delta, a gap, that requires about 10,000 beds, 10,000 members of the community to staff those beds. And that's currently what we're up against. But here's the point. That's a planning document. If we change our behaviors, that inventory will come down. If we meet this moment, we can truly bend the curve to reduce the need to surge, to reduce the need to have to go out and begin to cobble all those assets together. Though I want you to know we are doing just that. We always plan, we always anticipate. Let me give you some proof points. Today, we just secured a very large hospital in Northern California, Seton. It's now part of our portfolio, and we're going to populate that hospital as an example to meet the moment. Tomorrow, we'll announce a hospital in Southern California. That's 750 beds, those 2 hospitals combined. We start to stack this, 750 here. The motels that we're currently, and hotels we're currently negotiating with, we start stacking those master leases for those hotels. We're working, I had very, very positive conversations with the leaders of 2 of the finest public university systems in the world, UC and the California State University system. We're working with those systems to identify appropriate dormitories to help us with the surge. We start stacking those numbers. We're working with the federal government. I had a conversation today with Vice President Pence and President Donald Trump together on the phone, talking about our needs, in addition to my conversation today with the Secretary of Defense about these mobile medical and field units that they have committed to pledging, not just to California, but to folks all across this country. You start stacking those things, and we have, I believe, the capacity to meet this moment, but not unless we change our behaviors and do what is necessary to meet this moment. Let's bend the curve together. Let's not regret. Let's not dream of regretting. Go back, say, well, you know, we coulda, woulda, shoulda. Now when the data all points to where I think most of us know we're going. One has to be transparent. One has to be honest. It's difficult at times being the bearer of these messages. I can assure you, home isolation is not my preferred, choice. I know it's not yours, but it's a necessary one. We started with seniors 65 and over, the most vulnerable population, and will continue to overly focus on that population and those with compromised immune systems. But we now need to broaden it to all Californians. So that's the order we're putting out today. It's consistent with the leadership we've seen at the local level, including, I want to acknowledge Mayor Garcetti